Now, I don't know about you, but I've come to realize, and I feel like it's pretty obvious, that Jesus is in the business of transforming lives. Welcome to our series of talks called Dear Church, where we've been on this journey reading and learning about the history of the Christian church throughout the book of Acts. Today, I want to take you to Acts chapter 9. Starting from the very first verse, here's what it says. But Saul, still breathing threats and murder against the disciples of the Lord, went to the high priest and asked him for letters to the synagogues at Damascus, so that if he found any belonging to the way, men or women, he might bring them bound to Jerusalem. Now, as he went on his way, he approached Damascus, and suddenly a light from heaven shone around him. And falling to the ground, he heard a voice saying to him, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? And he said, Who are you, Lord? And he said, I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting. But rise and enter the city, and you will be told what you are to do. This is the text where we read about the Apostle Paul's miraculous transformation. Before his encounter with Jesus, he was a Pharisee who was passionate about taking down Christians. He was persecuting them, approving their execution, and putting them in jail. This is why when Jesus meets us, he transforms us in many ways. But one of the ways that we experience transformation in Christ is with our passions and desires. Because without Jesus, passion can be destructive. See, before Paul had this miraculous encounter with Jesus that led to his salvation and transformation, it's important for us to remember, Paul was passionate about God. In his letter to the church in Philippi, here's what he says, speaking of himself. As to zeal, a persecutor of the church. As to righteousness under the law, blameless. But whatever gain I had, I counted as loss for the sake of Christ. You see, Paul only had an Old Testament revelation of God through his law. He had yet had a true revelation of Jesus. And so he was fighting the same God that he vowed to honor. So when it came to his passion, it was destructive. But after this encounter with Jesus, we see through almost the whole second half of the New Testament that his passion now became fruitful. Now, friends, here's what I want you to see. Transformation always takes place on the Damascus Road. And now I'm not talking geographically, I'm talking spiritually. On the Damascus Road, the Apostle Paul was settled in his heart with what he thought was right. And Jesus completely transformed his worldview. Like any of us, before Christ, we can be settled in our hearts to think that the way we live our lives is good. Before Christ, we may think it's good and okay to hold on to bitterness. We may think it's good to not forgive others depending on what they did to us. But without Christ, we can't possibly know what good really means. You see, Jesus gives good its proper definition. It's on this road where Jesus meets us and changes the way we understand and think about the world around us. But we have to come to the conclusion that Jesus is right. And not only that he's right, but that he's the way. Who are you, Lord? Were the words of the Apostle Paul during his encounter with Jesus. And then he spent the remaining of his life on this side of heaven sharing that answer with others. Because an encounter with Jesus changes everything. The man that was against Christ was now for Christ. The man that hated Christ followers would now be hated because he was a Christ follower. The man who was zealous for the law was now zealous for Jesus. The man that brought fear to some that were in the church now feared the Lord. He was what we read about in his own letter to the Corinthian church. He was now a new creation. The old has passed away. Behold, the new has come. And friends, if you put your faith in Jesus, you can say the same about you.